Hello everyone and welcome to From the Heart Friday with me, Jessica Brigden of JessBCreativeCardiology. Welcome, welcome. Today I have a really awesome technique card for you. This is one of my Workshop of the Month kits. So I believe this one, if you had placed an order with me during the month of May, or excuse me, we're in May, and during the month of April, get my dates straight here, then I have sent you a kit along with your catalog. All right, if your order was over $50 or more. And today we are making a fan fold technique card. All right, the fan fold technique seems to be all the rage right now. I've been seeing cards and various tutorials all over the place. Hi, Carmen. Hello, hello. The thing is, a lot of fan fold cards are designed for larger cards, like 5x7. But I traditionally make cards that are A2 size. That is, the finished size is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, because those are the cards that you can, you get 2 card bases out of a sheet, an 8 1/2 by 11 sheet of cardstock. All right, which is what we primarily use here in the United States. So I have tweaked some of the tutorials, and I've done a bit of trial and error because when we are cutting with angles, it can be a little tricky. But hopefully I have simplified the process and we are going to make our own A2 size fan fold card. Check out how cute this is. All right, so I'm going to show you how to make this card. I'll be featuring Stampin' Up's new Florals in Bloom. I had to look. We've got a few, it's a brand new catalog month, so lots of new product. Hi, Polly. So yeah, so I will be using Stampin' Up's Florals in Bloom collection for this, but really you can use any patterns of beautiful paper, anything that works for you. So I'm gonna flip the camera so we can get started and you can follow along. Alrighty, so we'll do a little quick switcheroo here. All right, so you can see the Florals in Bloom collection. All right, if you have your catalog handy, this is pages 40 through 45 features these. Well, actually it keeps going a little bit. 40 through 47. All right, it shows the various elements of the Florals in Bloom. But here on pages 42 and 43, you can see the patterns of the designer paper, as well as the new in color flat pearls. And as well as the dies. So I am going to be using the Pretty Floral dies. All right, so this is the one that has, it's a big sheet of dies. So this one won't actually fit inside my stamp case, but it's a big sheet. And in particular, I'm going to use the bold flower. Again, I love that it cuts and adds a little bit of texture. All right, and then we'll be using this detailed piece as well. Because this creates a fun little overlay, all right, to give your flower even more detail. So really cool there. All right, so that's what we're going to use today. And I have all the pieces prepped and ready to go. So for this, you really do need a good paper trimmer that you can maneuver and adjust. All right, but we are just going to be using half sheets. So what I'm going to do is the new color Strawberry Slush, or I should say returning favorite color Strawberry Slush. Okay, and I also recommend that you have a pencil, in which case I got these cute little mechanical pencils at the dollar store. I think they were a 4-pack or something, but yes, that is what you will need. Your paper trimmer, a pencil, helps that it has an eraser. Okay, and then whatever patterns of paper. I do recommend 2 different patterns, right? So in this case, I'm using the bold floral, and then I've contrasted it here with more of a subtle strawberry slush pattern. All right, that helps this nice little strip of floral stand out a bit. Okay, so that's what we need. Let me pull in my paper trimmer. All right, and I'm going to use my cutting blade, move that right up to the top, okay, so that we can go ahead and get started. I'll have our card here. So let me show you too. This opens just as a traditional card. All right, the finished size is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And my technique is a little bit unique in that I've used just this half sheet, okay, this half sheet of strawberry slush cardstock for most of the pieces, and then a 4 by 5 1/4 piece of the Florals and Bloom pattern paper. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So the trickiest part here, all right, is that we start out, all right, let me show you this together as one piece. All right, so we have our strawberry slush cardstock. It is 5 1/2 by 8 1/2. So I have scored it here at 4 1/4. Okay, so just your traditional half sheet. Go ahead and fold that in half. I've already done that here. I do recommend pre-scoring on this just so that you know where your 4 1/4 mark is. That will come in very helpful as we get started, because your very first thing you're going to do is put that score line at the 4 1/4, see? That's why I did it, and actually move it right up here. The Stampin' Up! Trimmer is nice because they have various sections. You don't want to put it all the way up at the top, because then you can't see the numbers. All right, so maybe come down to this second line here so that you can see the measurements. You can see where the 4 1/4 is. All right, and line that first thing up. Okay, and then you want to take your pencil here. All right, so pretend this is all one whole half sheet of cardstock. Take your pencil, and your first mark is going to be at 2 1/2. All right, so with your score line at 4 1/4, and that is very important. This is where some of my trial and error came in. You definitely want your score line at the 4 1/4, and then mark your 2 1/2. Okay, that's really what we're gonna do to get started. All right, then we're gonna take this piece of cardstock with our 2 1/2 inch mark lined, and we're gonna put that 2 1/2 mark here in the guide of our trimmer, and we're gonna line that up with the very tip, the very corner of the paper. I believe you can see that down here. So line the 2 1/2 inch mark up right in the grid, right in the cutting guide here, along with that point. All right, so 2 1/2 down to the opposite corner, both right there in the cutting track. And then this was a great tip that another demo shared that I thought I would pass along. When you are cutting your angle, it is best not to start at the corner, because if you do that, right, if you do this and go up, you're gonna smudge your corner. You're gonna jam it, right? You don't want to. We want nice, crisp corners. We don't want to jam those. So start with your cutting blade up here at the top, okay, and then pull it down. Now I've already cut this, so pull it down, and then you'll end up with your card base already folded. You've got this angled front, and now we have this larger triangle piece that we've cut off. Okay, so this is going to be your base. Now for visual, let's go ahead and get this started a little bit. So we're going to take a piece of basic white, your 4 by 5 1/4, and we're going to glue this inside our card just so that it helps. Let me move the camera here just so we've got a little bit better angle. All right, so let's go ahead and glue this inside. This will just make things a little bit easier when we can see what we're working with. So this goes right inside the card, 4 by 5 1/4 there. And now you can see a little bit easier the angled front. All right, now I do have a little bit of a pencil mark still, so go ahead and take, if you've got an eraser there, and then just gently wipe off that little bit of a pencil mark, okay? So now your card base is good to go, and we've got this larger triangle reserved for the front, okay, to create our fan. Now, the next thing we need is a piece of designer series paper. All right, and we want a piece the same size as our basic white. We want a piece that is 4 by 5 1/4. Okay, so when you do that at 4 by 5 1/4, then we're gonna bring this piece. Now, obviously, I've already cut mine. Let me show you with a piece that hasn't been cut already. All right, so let me come in here and I'm gonna just trim this piece to 4 by 5 1/4, just so I can show you exactly how to cut this. Now, if you received one of my workshop kits, all this prep has been done for you. All of your pieces are ready to go, just stick and assemble. But for those of you who would actually like to see how to create this yourself from scratch, then it is important to go through all these steps. All right, so your piece is 4 by 5 1/4. Again, come down just below. All right, so you can see, make sure you line your left corner up with the 4-inch mark. And then we're gonna use that same measurement. Remember how we marked our cardstock at 2.5? We're gonna do this as well. Make sure it's straight in here and mark this at 2.5, okay? So it's itty bitty. I know you can't really see that here on the screen, but I did use a little pencil there. Hi, Wendy, hi, Doris. All right, so we are making a fan fold card in A2 size. All right, so that your finished card is still 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. All right, and so we're gonna do the front panel here. So we started with designer series paper at 4 by 5 1/4. All right, we lined this up at the 4-inch mark, marked it at 2.5, which is where we cut our angle here. And now we're gonna do the same thing as the front. We're gonna take that 2.5-inch mark, line it up in the cutting guide right here in the track, and we're gonna cut from that 2.5-inch mark to the opposite corner here. And again, start with your cutting blade up here at the top so that you don't smudge your corner. All right, and cut from that 2.5 down to the bottom, okay? So this is what you end up with. All right, so reserve those. All right, pretend that's the same pattern. This is the one I'm working with today. So let's go ahead and adhere this piece to the very front. All right, we see our card start to take shape a little bit. I know with these techniques, oftentimes I'll see a technique and the card looks so complicated and there's so many pieces and it can be intimidating. So what I like to do is find a way to create it more efficiently so that it doesn't have to be so overwhelming, okay? So we had this piece, right? And then we're left with this big triangle. Now, I'm gonna walk you through my process. I originally thought, oh, I've got this triangle, I could just mount it on the piece that I cut off, which seems all well and good, except if you're creating a fan, you don't want you want to contrast your patterns. See how it's nice to have this contrasting pattern beneath the floral paper? All right, so what we're going to do, set your floral paper aside, okay, that angle. Take the angled cardstock, all right, this we can do, all right, and we're gonna go ahead and adhere this, and you're gonna line it up, the point down at the bottom left corner, and then make sure it's on here so that the corners, all right, so that the top corners, top and bottom corners, you wanna make sure they're on your card, all right, because if it's too far up and it's poking out the edges, all right, it's not gonna fit in an envelope, that's not gonna work. So make sure you slide it down so that it is on your card base, corner to corner, all right, and then just adjust it a little bit so that point goes down here to the bottom left. All right, now another tip, when you are gluing this to your card front, remember this is a flap, so you can't glue the whole thing or you'll just glue your card shut, all right? That would defeat the purpose. So make sure when you're putting your adhesive on here, all right, that you're only doing it on this bottom half, okay? So like make yourself a little adhesive line and you're only gonna apply adhesive from that point down. Make sure you do get all the way to the point, okay? All right, so we only put adhesive here on half. And we'll go ahead and adhere that All right, bottom corner. All right, top corner, side corner here. And all right, card opens. So we're good. Now you can see the fan start to take shape a little bit. Okay, so you do need to bring in a second piece of designer series paper. All right, in this case, you do need a piece that is 2 1/4 by 5. So, and you want more of a less distracting pattern. In this case, the strawberry slush, or as I show you here, you're gonna cut your piece to 2 1/4, 2 1/4 by 5. Okay. All right, so 2 1/4 by 5, and this is to make the pattern that goes on top of your larger triangle. All right, so once we've got that at 2 1/4 by 5, all right, the next thing we're going to do is put this, you want the top left corner in your track to the bottom right. I'm cutting from bottom left to bottom right. If you do it the other way, top right to top left, then the triangle is not going to, well, yeah, it's best to go cut it at the same angle that we did all the other cuts, okay? So I'm cutting from top left to bottom right. In this case, we have 2 points, so gently, or what you could do, put this in here secure, hold your paper in place, and place your blade in the middle, and then go up to the top, right? And then come back to the middle, and then come down to the bottom. That helps prevent either corner from being smudged, okay? And now that you've got that, then this piece will fit right on top, right? Look at that, isn't that awesome? Okay, so I'm already pre-cut a piece of strawberry slush, so that is what I'm using here, okay? And again, make sure you apply your adhesive firmly, go all the way down to the point, okay? And then this piece goes right on top of your cardstock. All right, and you should have a nice little border of cardstock all the way around. Okay, are you guys still with me? Hi, Kathy. Hello, hello. Kathy, your kit, I mailed it. I mailed it last week. Yours is one that's taken its sweet time. I believe my tracking when I checked it this morning showed your kit had left, your package had left Colorado Springs. I don't know. So anyways, it's on its way. It should be there tomorrow, okay? Hi, Addie. Hello, hello. Welcome. Thanks so much for commenting. All right, so now we've got our card base, first panel, largest triangle, and now we need this smaller piece. So remember, we had, okay, so we need a second little piece to go here over the front, and we already had our remaining piece of designer series paper. I got too many pieces. Here we go. Okay. So when we cut that, make sure I've got the right piece. There we go. All right, so we had cut this off. I was showing you just with a different pattern so you could see the full sheet. We glued this one to the front, and then this piece, all right, is not the same. This piece we're going to use for the top fan there, okay? So what we need to do is we're gonna bring in a second little piece of cardstock, all right, so of some strawberry slush cardstock, and we are going to cut that, all right, we're gonna cut that to 1 1/2 by 5. All right, so let me show you here. So you just need just a little bit. All right, so I come in here at 1 1/2. Okay, 1 1/2 by 5. All right, and with this 1 1/2 by 5, this is going to create the little triangle to layer on top. Now again, Make sure you cut your paper at the same angle you've been cutting all of the other pieces. So we're gonna go from top left to bottom right. Again, line the points up here in your cutting guide, point to point there. All right, hold on to it and put your cutting blade in the middle. Again, we don't want to smudge our points. Let's go in the middle, hold it tight, go up to the top, come back to the middle, and then come down to the bottom. Okay, so now you've got your little triangles. Look at that. Perfect. Okay. All right, so we're going to adhere this, and I wanted to put this on with some dimensionals. Just pop it up a little bit more here. All right, so let's take our dimensionals, and I'm using up some edge pieces here, or if you've got some of the mini dimensionals, those would work great too. All right, so we're gonna just put some dimensionals on here. My little edge pieces, they're drying out here. I'm running out of sticky. Okay. So let's keep going and just do them kind of evenly down the track. Oh, there's another one. Okay. If it doesn't get all the way to the point, don't worry about it, because that's where your little flower or something will cover it up. But you could always cut a little half piece or use a mini down here. All right, get as close to the point as you can without your adhesive showing through. Okay, now with this one, we're not going to come quite down to the point, but we are going to, I need to replace my cutting blade there. All right, we want this one to stand out above the first, but again, we want to make sure that our corner points are still on the card base. Okay, so go ahead, line them up here at the top, and then point that angle right down the front. Yes, this is the new Florals in Bloom paper, and I love it because it has so many of the new in colors in it, which is pretty awesome. Okay, so now you can see this is really coming together. That's exciting. All right, so for this top piece, all right, remember we had this larger triangle that we had cut off of our 4 by 5 1/4. All right, we glued one to the card front, and then we have this remaining piece. Now this part is the part that's a little bit tricky, that I always forget. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna flip it over, because I want to be able to put the full length up against the guide here of my trimmer. Okay, and we are going to cut this down to, because this was 4 by 5 1/4, and I want to cut this down to 4 3/4. Okay, so if I put this on my track right here, you can see it was at 5 1/4. So I want to slide it to the right here to the 4 3/4 mark. So I'm just going to trim a little bit off of the edge here. Okay, so that's the only scrap that you've got. Okay, and then what we're gonna do, again, we want to make sure, all right, that we've marked it at 2 1/2. So flip it back over to the right side of the pattern you want to use. Okay, and then line up this top corner Okay, so I did that. 1 1/4. All right, and I'm marking it at 1 1/4. So bring this down here. Okay, so your 90-degree angles here, up here at the top. Okay, use your pencil again, and this time we're going to mark it at 1 1/4. Here we go, 1 1/4. So come on down, mark your pencil right there. Okay, and then put this in your track, and we're gonna go from the 1 1/4 pencil line all the way. Again, we're going from top left to bottom right, down to the corner, right down to the point. All right, so go ahead and you're gonna start at the top. Okay, make sure, I know that's a little hard to hold on to there. All right, but make sure you can see in your track, your pencil mark and your point down here. All right, and then hold this tight and gently pull this down, okay? This part is extra, all right? You can save this for some sunburst cards or something. Maybe we'll do another technique on that later. All right, but this is the piece that you need, all right? And that's gonna fit right on the top. So let me bring in the proper color. I hope that's not confusing you that I'm jumping back and forth from patterns, but like I said, for the card here, I already had everything pre-cut, but I wanted to show you, I'm using that second pattern just to show you how to cut it yourself. Okay, so now that we've got this on here, all right, go ahead and apply your adhesive. All right, don't worry if you can't get all the way down to the very, very tip, all right, because that's gonna be a little bit hidden under our embellishment, okay? So just make sure that it lines up at the top and then pull that right down to the point, okay? So top looks good. All right, we're good to go. Now comes the fun part of embellishing. All right, so you can use any, you can put a little, like a die cut circle here for your sentiment. Actually, a little heads up for my creative cardiology team. We're gonna do this technique card for one of our make and takes, and I'll be using the new celebratory sips, and we're gonna put a fun little cup of, you know, fun little beveragino, as my friend Kylie likes to say. We're gonna put that down in the corner. But for this card, since we're using the Florals paper, I die cut some. Now the contrasting color here with the strawberry slush, I went with Pretty in Pink. All right, the other in color. All right, so I die cut my Pretty in Pink cardstock, and isn't that nice? You get those nice little lines there in your die cut. Adds a little bit of visual interest there. So go ahead and grab your dimensionals again. Let's trim some edge pieces to put here on our little petals. And I'm gonna pop this up because I like having, hi Phyllis, good to see you. Yes, you'll definitely wanna go back and watch this video from the beginning. We are making a fan fold technique card, but it's in the standard 4 by 5 1/4. All right, 4 by 5 1/4 size. So you can put your flower any angle you want, but I want it down here. Okay, and then like I showed in the beginning, this detailed piece layers over top to give your flower even more 3D imagery. All right, so my tip for that, I'm not gonna show you how I die cut it, but I will give you the tip that when you got a little piece of your cardstock, go ahead and cut your adhesive sheets, right? Your adhesive sheets come in a panel of 6 by 12. So cut that down to size, like 2 by 6, okay? And then apply your adhesive sheet directly to the back of your cardstock and then run it through your die cut machine, okay? So apply your adhesive sheet first and then run it through. You see how I've already got the adhesive sheet on the back here. That makes it so much easier. All right, with the adhesive sheet, you just bend, peel these little backing off just like a dimensional. And that means the sticky is already there. It's awesome. You don't have to mess with little dabs of liquid glue or anything like that. You've already just run that through with your die cut, and then you place your very detailed image here over the top. Alrighty. And then you just press it into place. All right, the nice thing about the adhesive sheets too, they do have a little bit of wiggle room, all right, initially, so you can reposition them, all right, but once you tack it down, then it's good, okay? Now, if you want a little sentiment on the side, like I said, some people will do like a stitch circle here as opposed to a flower. I wanted both. I wanted to tie in the floral paper here. So I used, and I think I have one, yes, tucked in my envelope, just a little label die. This one is from the mixed mixed labels bundle. All right, it's nice. It's got a fun little shape and a little bit of a little decorative edge on the top and bottom. All right, and then I've got some of the In Color flat back pearls. So I'm using my Strawberry Slush, and yes, I have the original Strawberry Slush ink pad from when it was an In Color back in, what was it, like 2016 or something. And it's still going strong. I did, you can tell my re-inker has been on my craft desk. It's been in the sun, so the paper on it has yellowed a little bit, but the re-inker is still works. It's totally fine. Okay, and then we'll pick a sentiment here. Now, the coordinating Sweet Blooms, it's part of this Florals collection. And we've got little words, but they're a little bit, I don't know, didn't quite work for what I wanted. So I'm just pulling in a sentiment from another set that I liked. This one has a With Love. It also has a Thankful for You Friend. All right, so I'm just gonna pick just a smaller sentiment to fit on this little label because I didn't want it to take over my whole card. I really wanted the focal point to be that fan. Okay, so I've got my sentiment. I'm gonna stamp it towards the right. I'm not gonna center it because that way I can tuck it underneath the petals of my flower. Okay, so a little With Love off to the side. Okay, pop another dimensional. Again, place that dimensional over here towards the right so that this left part will tuck here under my petals. Oh, look at that, just perfect. And then we can use some of those pearls. Again, they get the whole small, medium, large for all 5 of the In Colors there. All right, so I've just cut a little three piece here of the Strawberry Slush. And I'm gonna place these on my card. Really, you can place them anywhere you want. All right, you can, there we go. All right, just like that. This was my original. I placed them a little differently on here, but nonetheless, it came out, okay? And it's a traditional 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, so it will fit in one of our Stampin' Up! Envelopes there. Oops, just be careful with your fan. You don't want to get it caught on your envelope, but there you go, okay? So I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you'll give it a try, all right? And